we need to talk about Shadowsong. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It has actually been a little while since I've said that because it's been a while since I've actually filmed. I'm going to say it now. I apologize for the Winterween holdup. The Winterween vlog is still taking me a while because I decided to participate in it. My reading groove has been completely messed up, and so has kind of my schedule. So sorry about that. Hopefully that will be up before this video is, because it is in the editing process. But today, I haven't done a book review in a while, and the last one I did was for Hidden Pictures, which was the horror novel that I actually kind of liked. And today I'm deciding to do one on Shadowsong by Jae-Jones. I'm doing a review on this one specifically because I did an entire vlog on its predecessor, which is Wintersong by the same author. I picked up this book because I am a huge fan of Jim Henson's Labyrinth, and that is apparently what was the inspiration behind Wintersong. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. It had its issues. Like, part 1 could have honestly been its own book if it had been filled out a little bit more. It probably could have been its own book, and this could have been a trilogy. But I did enjoy it enough to give it 4 stars. I liked the vibes, I liked the relationship, I liked the characters, and it was, to me, a good book. For those of you who don't know, this book is about a girl named Liesel, whose sister is brought into what is known as underground, and after being kidnapped by the Goblin King. She has to go save her sister, but she may have to make sacrifices in order to get her sister out, but to fulfill some old laws, okay? And then a relationship ensues, and it's actually kind of sweet. There's a lot of musical references in here. Music plays a very big part in this book. And I thoroughly enjoyed the romance, the characters. I thought it was dark, but it wasn't like, it was kind of dark, and it wasn't too close to the Jim Henson to the Jim Henson original film. It did have like some references to it that I went, oh, I know what that is, like the peaches and stuff. But other than that, it was original enough that I enjoyed it for what it was. I cannot say the same for Shadowsong. For a quick synopsis, I will try to keep this as spoiler free as possible, but this is a second book in a series. Well, a second book in a duology. There's only 2. This book takes place 6 months after the first book, and it's more focused on Liesel and Joseph, which is her brother. But the thing is, because of the consequences of the end of this book come back at the beginning of this book, and they are very worried about something called the Wild Hunt, and they have to basically find a way back underground in order to fix what has already been broken. Which sounds interesting on paper. I gave this book 2 stars, which is a far cry from the 4 stars I gave Wintersong. I am going to try my best not to just completely dog on this book, because I do like what the author was trying to do. I just don't think it was executed well. So basically what the author's trying to do is, first, this is a much darker story. The author warns you about that firsthand, stating Liesel has bipolar disorder. There's some different ideations that could be uncomfortable. There's a little bit of a trigger warning in here, which I don't mind. Please make it darker. I mean, that's not a big issue. It's not even the issue. The issue for me is the story itself. So yes, this book focuses more on Liesel and Joseph. The only problem is they only interact 4 or 5 times, and most of those interactions end badly. The Goblin King is almost nowhere to be found. We interact with him maybe 5 times this entire book, which again could work, but I do feel like this book is a lot of filler. I think what Jae-Jones was really trying to do, and I appreciate this, was trying to focus on world building and the lore of the story she had created, which is not a bad idea. It's like, oh, we're going to learn more about these laws, about these rules. You don't really learn much about the laws, to be perfectly honest. It's called The Laws. But you don't see the Goblin King at all. There are two characters who show up at the beginning of the book, and there is absolutely no resolution for either of them. Some of the story elements just have loose ends. I mean, the relation, like, yes, some of this is like kind of tied up in a neat little bow, which is fine, but I feel like it's really rushed to get there, which is weird because it's so slow. I feel like so much of this book is just so much filler. Like, I understand trying to get into the mind of Liesel and the consequences of her actions, but there isn't even a lot of that. And again, I'm trying to give this a review without like giving too many spoilers, but you kind of figure out who the villain is pretty quickly, and what you think is a threat doesn't really follow through as a threat at all. But you've left too many loose ends. Like, even there's a little bit of backstory to like the Goblin King before he was the Goblin King that I don't think was, one, necessary, and two, also was not given a fair conclusion. So it's like you introduce it, but then it's almost unfinished. I do think personally this would have been so much better as maybe a novella, like for if you really wanted the closure on these characters, which I think is fine, but to kind of give it the punch I think it needed so much less filler. This book kind of drags, and it's disappointing. Something else I didn't like about this one specifically is that a lot of like the magic that's introduced in Wintersong is inconsistent in this book. Like, the consistency changes. Like, suddenly they get help from somebody, and it's then from the first book, and it's like, well, that was mighty convenient that they knew that and never said anything to anyone before, but as soon as it's like convenient, it comes out. So I did find the ending of this book super convenient. I also saw the ending of this book coming a mile away. I'm like, I know what's gonna happen, and sometimes I'm okay with books being predictable, but this one was too predictable. It was unpredictable, too predictable, and just random all at the same time. I feel like a lot of the things that happened in this book were just kind of random. I feel like the Count and the Countess are characters that are introduced in this book and are not given a full real arc. Like, they don't get a good ending. They just, it's disappointing. That's all I can think of is it's just a disappointing read, especially after I enjoyed Wintersong so much. And if you like the Wintersong dynamic between the Goblin King and Liesel, you just don't get a lot of it in this. And I found that very upsetting. Like, there's a little bit of it, but it's not as present, which I guess makes sense, but it's still not as present. Another issue I kind of had was, yes, there's poppies. Poppies are a very present motif throughout this book. I mean, they're kind of important to it, but kind of constantly saying they look like blood is like, I get what you're saying. They're red. The poppies were constantly compared to blood. That might be more of a nitpick, but it happened a lot. There's also a thing with mirrors that's really never given closure. There's so many loose ends that are just not tied up. My hubby's home, so I'm gonna finish this up. So, long story short, this book was a 2-star for me. If you like Labyrinth, give this book a try. If you don't like this, please don't read this. As much as I would have appreciated some closure, it's not particularly the closure I would have. The execution wasn't as well thought out as it could have been. But anyway, that's my take. I think that's it for this video. I'm gonna go do wifey things. I will see you guys in the next video, and hopefully you will see this one after the Winterween vlog. So I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.